Okay, it's so great to see you guys. Even though I'm not there, I would have loved to be there. But anyway, wonderful to see you guys all on screen. I hope you guys are doing well. And hopefully I can talk to you guys a little bit about my experience as it relates to coding. Is that correct? Is that what we're talking about this year, about coding and
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Just general. Yeah.
Okay. So let's get started. Okay, so again, my name is Joseph Tivade. I think I have my son Joshua somewhere in the audience there. I think I see him in that one little panel there. Hey, Josh.
Josh, you want to give
Okay. I work in the pharmaceutical industry, and just a little background on how I got to do a little bit of coding. And I started out as a bench scientist. I was a biochemistry major in college, so I graduated in that. And so I started working right here in Summit at Novartis. And there I was in a department that looked at, it was part of a early drug discovery department. And so what that means is we are trying to find some sort of a novel drug to cure some of the illnesses. Now, one of the things that was really exciting at the time when I was at Novartis is there was a big push to start to automate some of these experiments. Now, have you guys ever played with robots or anything like that? Raise your hands if you've played with robots. Awesome. I see a few hands go up. And that was my job, is to run automation. And I'll tell you how we use the automation. But before we do that, let me just get some hands on. So this is sort of an analogy. So I'm going to try to talk to you a little bit about what drug discovery is all about. But show of hands if you've played darts. Has anybody played like the game of darts? Okay, I see a lot of hands go up. Excellent. So as you know, there is a little board on the wall and a bunch of darts, and then you try to throw them. And mainly you're trying for what? The bullseye, correct? So we're trying to hit the bullseye on that dartboard. So think of that as sort of like what we did with drug discovery. So you have sort of a disease, and you have a target, and that target, if you can either create some sort of reaction in that target, then you're pretty close to the bullseye. So you hit the bullseye. So let's talk about a little bit about how that analogy works. Okay, so I'm not a very good player, but if I threw enough darts, I know that I can hit the bullseye at some point. And so the idea of drug discovery like that is to have hundreds of thousands of compounds in your library, and you throw everything at the target and see which one hits the target. But this is also a little different in that imagine you're blindfolded, and your job is to throw like 100,000, 200,000 darts somewhere towards that target. And the only way you would know which attempt hit the bullseye, you would have to sort of number your targets with some sort of a code. So you know that, okay, I picked up this target at the 200th target dart. I threw the 200 dart and it hit the bullseye. So you have to know some way to collect that type of data. You just can't throw the target blindly and not know what you've done. So that's what automation is all about, is to take that and throw as many darts at the target as possible, and then analyze which one hit the target. So with that being said, I think the most exciting part was to play with the robots, design all kinds of tools around it that could do your experiment for you. Because after all, sometimes it can get boring doing the same thing over and over again in the lab by hand. So robots was a lot more fun. We were able to screen millions of compounds in a day. So the idea of the robot is it never gets tired. People get tired. So the robot keeps on working, so we played with all kinds of ginormous industrial types of robots. We had refrigerators, we had incubators, all of that stuff around a table. And then we were able to automate that. So that's how I got into programming, because I loved working with robots and I loved programming the robots to do a certain task. And at the time, these robots cost a lot of money. So some of these robots basically cost in the millions of dollars. So how cool is that to play with $1 million robots as part of your job? So that was very, very cool. Secondly, robots are being used in a lot of different places in the pharmaceutical industry now. For example, if you look at Amazon, they use a lot of robots for their inventory to go get their stuff. We do the same kind of thing. We want to get a specific compound for testing. We just tell the robot, hey, go get that. Here's the location. Let's go get the compounds. So those are the kind of things. But then, what starts happening when you start playing with robots? You generate a lot of data. And so the bottleneck now starts becoming the data. You can do all the experiments as fast as you can, but you can't start to handle all of that data that's coming out. So then I said, let me see if I can move over there and start looking at some of what we do with data analysis. And so that was really exciting too, because we have tons of data and I have to sort of figure out which dart hit the bullseye. And so to find that out, we had to do a little bit of coding and a little bit of programming to make sure that we go through all of the data and find the right place where it hit the target. Now, when we throw a dart at a dartboard, we use our eyes to see if we hit the bullseye. Our eyes are very powerful because they can instantly analyze that data and say, oh, yeah, I hit the target. Nope, I didn't hit the target. So we started developing visualization tools through programming. And I'm sure anybody who's done some programming, you try to do some sort of visualization to make it easier for a person who doesn't program to work through it. So we started doing that a little bit. And so if you look at the bullseye, it's a target. And so we started building something called Spotfire. We started using a tool called Spotfire and building and programming that tool to visualize your data. So in one single visualization, we can tell exactly which compound hit the target. And so that is very important. The visualization tools are very important in programming, and it allows anybody who doesn't program to really quickly look through their data and make a decision and move forward. So that's sort of my background. Okay, so I did a lot of automation and I did a lot of data analysis. So that brings me to how I don't do a lot of coding, but I do fair amount. And I was never a good coder in school, but that's only because, it was kind of boring to code the same old thing over and over again. But for me, what was exciting about coding is really the challenge. And if it was challenging, I'm taking that job to code, okay? So what I did was try to find a passion for something that I loved in coding. So one of the things, I don't know if anybody knows about genetic disorders. Has anybody come across somebody who was sick because of genetic disorders? Yep. So this is the company I work for now really is geared towards finding if not a treatment, but we're also looking to cure these genetic disorders. And so one of the things that we try to do is modeling on how that genetic disorder happens. I'll give you a quick example of a genetic disorder. It's called Duchenne muscular dystrophy. It's a disease that basically when the RNA, I don't know, I don't want to get too much into the weeds, but just let you know that basically the cell doesn't produce the right kind of protein, and so your muscle weakens. And so we at PTC Therapeutics, where I work, try to find a drug that can help create a full protein. It's called a dystrophin protein that can be utilized in the muscle. Because if it's a truncated protein, it's useless. The body cannot utilize it, cannot use it. So what we did was to find a small molecule. So basically, the disease has sort of something called a premature stop codon. And so what it is, just like coding, you know, if you don't code it properly, your program's not going to work. And just like in the human body, the coding has to be just right to create the full protein. So that's the output. The input is, you know, the RNA comes in, it gets translated, transcribed, and generates a new protein. And so when in that segment there's a premature stop codon, which of course prevents it from developing. So our drug, what it does is it comes in and sort of overrides that stop codon and creates the full protein. So that's some of the sort of an example I'm just putting out there. So where do I find my passion? I find the passion in coding, and is really my passion comes from how can I help people get to or find a solution to a problem. So if you can find a solution to a problem, you'll get passionate about coding. Coding is, you know, I think if you all agree, if it's fun, you want to do it more. If you're passionate about it, you want to do it more. And so I highly, you know, try to find your passion in what you want to do and pursue that, because, and that passion really comes from, in my experience, is from one thing, and that is finding a passion about how you can help others. And I think if you can do that, you will find your passion. And so with that being said, coding has taken me a lot of different places. I've coded web pages, I've done web servers. Now we're doing something called high performance computing. I don't know if anybody knows what high performance computing is. If you do, raise your hand. Do you know what high performance computing is? Okay, I see one hand there, couple of hands there. Okay, excellent. So high performance computing allows us to now do, you know, just like in the robots that allowed us to do high throughput screening, high performance computing allows us to use powerful computers clustered together to perform a task. And so we have a lot of data that needs to be analyzed, and you just can't analyze them on your laptop or your desktop computer because there's just not enough power to them. So high performance computing allows us to do that. So with that being said, we utilize the SGI. I don't know if anybody knows what that is. It's a silicon graphics computer, and we use a lot of cloud resources in Azure, in Oracle, and AWS. So those are some of the places that we go to. And what's really great is they've done a lot of work for us, so we can spin up a machine really quick to do our data analysis. But you need to code, and you need to use certain pieces of software, and you need to build a pipeline so you can take the input, which is your biological data, and push it out so that we can analyze it and find the results and see what worked. Now, with that being said, does anybody have any questions regarding coding or anything else?
We have one question. Yes.
Yeah.
So just say your name and your
Hi, I'm Kyle and I'm 9. What's your favorite coding or what do you code? Like type of coding?
What's your favorite, I guess, language to code in, I guess?
What's my favorite language to code? Okay.
Yeah, code
well,
in.
Code in? Okay, so I don't really have a favorite language. I just look for what do I need to do a job. And so I've worked for my web programming. I've used PHP. I've used Java for my other programming. A lot of our scientists work with Excel. So I've used Excel VBA, which is so automate their. So there's some really cool things that you can do in Excel to program. I've used Python. So it depends on what the problem is. And so I've sort of gravitated towards what's the easiest language to do that job. Kyle, does that answer your question?
Kyle says yes.
Okay, awesome.
We have a couple.
I see another hand go up.
Yeah, we've got one more question over here.
Sure.
So, say your name and your age.
Hi, I'm Finn. I'm 14. And what kind of what are like the type of medicine you make? Like, do you make the pills, injections?
Okay.
So
that's a great question. What was your name again? I'm sorry.
I guess what was your name?
Finn.
Finn.
Finn. Okay, so that's a great question, Finn, and it all depends again, like coding. What's the best method to deliver the medicine into your body? Now we have a medicine that is easier because it depends on your age. Some kids can't swallow pills, so we make them into powder, which you put them into a little drink, and you stir it and you mix it, and then you take that. There are other medicines. We do have just recently we have a method for gene therapy. I don't know if anybody has heard about gene therapy, but this particular disease requires an injection into the site where the repair happens. And then in gene therapy is another exciting field that's coming up and it's very hot. So we'll see where that goes. But we just happen to be, I think, one of 3 companies that have a gene therapy product on the market.
No, it's really exciting. We've actually got one more question over here.
Sure.
So just say your name and your age.
Hi, my name's Christian. I'm 10 years old. Have you ever observed a robot work? Like the ones you were talking about?
Observed. I played with them. Yes. I absolutely. When you say observed, what do you mean? Did I actually run them or?
Like, did you watch them work? Even if it was for a brief.
So, Christian, the interesting part is, being in automation and running robots, it's something that runs 24/7. So I had all kinds of cameras set up in the lab that watched the robots, so I could actually see and control the robots from home.
I've got one more question. Last one
Sure.
for this room, and then I'll finish here.
My name's Chris. I'm 10 years old. What inspired you to make medicine?
What inspired me to make medicine? Okay, so making medicine is a team effort. It's not just one person who does it. But you know what inspires me to make medicine is to see parents' reaction. So some of these diseases affect a lot of young kids, and to see a smile on a parent's face to see that their kid is getting better, there's nothing like it. It's an inspiration that you take home with you, and it's just amazing. And that's what inspires me to be in this medicine is people. How can I help those folks? How can I help those kids get better? And that's what inspires me. I see one more hand go up. I don't know if there's time for that, but.
We have some questions in this room. I think like 1 or 2 questions here.
Sure.
Like get started.
If you had to choose between coding, would you rather do the 1-0 method or the Python?
If I repeat that question again, if I had,
If you had to choose between Java and Python, what would you choose?
that's a good question, and I think my question still remains the same. It depends on really what the job is. I look at coding and languages. Go ahead. Were you saying something?
No, like in general, what do you like more?
In general,
Yeah.
I think Python is really terrific for machine learning, and that's what we're currently getting into. And when we're talking about artificial intelligence, that seems to be the language of choice in my field.
Okay.
Here we have another question here. I think. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Adam. And what's your favorite part of your job?
My favorite part of my job is really all about how can I solve a problem, and was I helpful in solving that problem? When I can solve a problem for somebody, that makes me really, really happy. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I think one last question here.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Aditya, and in that trial and error method that you've done, have you found any successful cures to any diseases?
Yes, of course. And I think that's what's exciting about this field is there are a lot of success stories. Because just to give you a little more background on that method, right? This trial and method is sort of a starting point. So all we're looking for is starting point. Then there's something called optimization. So when we find a compound that's pretty close to the target, but not exactly on the target, we can still take that and figure out, okay, what part of the molecule seems to be attracted towards that target, and then optimize it and change, not to get into the weeds, but sort of work, the chemists start to work and build a profile on what kind of compound is getting close towards that target. So that's how the whole drug discovery works. But then there's a whole thing that goes after that as well, because that's early. So we find a whole bunch of hits, but then it has to be tested, and there's analytical groups takes over, pharmacology. There's all kinds of groups that take over that, and the success of it all depends on how it passes through all the different hurdles.
That's great. So we've got a few more questions in this room over here.
Yeah.
All right, so I'll start working my way down this row.
Sure.
Let's go. Speak capacity. All right, so I'm gonna start off with name and age.
My name's Tommy. I'm 8 years old. What was your favorite robot that you ever played with?
What was my favorite robot?
Yes.
Well, favorite robot. So there's a company called CRS, and that was one of my first robots that I really gravitated towards. It's the same company that built sort of that articulating arm that was on the space shuttle. So that's I would say that one. There's a whole bunch of them. All different kinds of robots are available now, and there's I don't know, Tommy, if you know, but in the pharmaceutical industry, we try to miniaturize a lot of our experiments so we don't waste a lot of material. And that miniaturization, before, in the early before my days, we used to do experiments in like test tubes and things like that. But then it moved over into sort of a plate-based format. So it started out with like 24 well, then it went to 96 well, then to 384 well, then to 1536 well. And we have something called acoustic dispensers, where acoustic noise or sound waves can actually deliver a little bit of liquid into a plate.
Right. Thank you for that. Now, next question.
Hi, I'm Rosie and I'm 9. What made you want to go to your job?
What made me want to go to my job? Well, my parents, they said, you got to go get a job. And I said, okay, mom, okay, dad, I'll go get a job. But no,
why in this,
yeah, go ahead.
why in this specific field?
Why in this
Why in
specific
pharmacy?
field?
Yes.
Well, I think I enjoyed biology. I enjoyed sciences. That was one of my favorite thing is science. I enjoyed learning about science and technology. I was sort of like a dual major, I guess. I enjoyed computers and I enjoyed the biology. And so when I went into the pharmaceutical industry, I said, "Oh, I can find a place where I can do both. That is so awesome."
Thank you for that. One more question over here.
Okay.
Say your name and your age.
I'm Duncan and I'm 9. What was like the most complex robot you ever built?
Well, Duncan, the most complex robot are the robots that you have to put together. Actually, a friend of mine who I worked with actually started a robotics company. We were working together in the pharmaceutical industry, but the idea was, instead of building everything around the robot, maybe we can bring stuff to the robot. Okay, so what we started doing is putting stuff so it's mobile. So we could take a workstation and clip it onto where the robot is. So the robot can be stationary and we can surround it with a whole bunch of tools around it. So the robot can we can just swap out, let's say, a reader, and a reader is something that analyze or looks at a plate and gets the information from that plate. So we started doing that, or something that an incubator. We could just bring an incubator, roll it right into where the robot is. So those were sort of challenges early on, because the first early ideas were to build everything and just sort of stationary. But then it limited us to what we could do. So when we started to put things more mobile, where we can just bring stuff and attach it to the robot, that gave us the flexibility, and we didn't need to have a huge, ginormous room to do that. And hopefully that answers your question.
Duncan, did that answer your question? Yes, he's nodding his head.
Okay.
All right, so our last question in this room. Finn has one more question.
Okay.
Right.
How do you test these like drugs? Like how do you test them? Do you test them on like people, animals, insects?
Okay.
Something else?
That is a really great question. And so we test them on cells. Okay, so our first phase is to test them in a model. That's okay. So let's say we take a bunch of cells, either it could be from humans or it could be animals, and you grow them in an incubator, and then you plate them out and you test it, because they have that, so we've looked at the mechanism in which this disease progresses, and we can then test it on little cells that we can grow in an incubator and test the drug in that manner. So that's what we do, is we plate out a whole bunch of cells and we put a little drug on it, and then we can figure out which one is working, which one is not.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Tivade. Actually, we have one more question in the other room.
Okay.
So
Go ahead. Go for it.
Yeah. Hello, my name is Samuel Lokande, and I was just wondering, about how long is the drug making process?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Shamuel Lokande. I appreciate that question. Very good question. So for those who don't know, the drug making process it takes about over 10 years from discovery to marketplace. So we're hoping to reduce that timeline, because 10 years is too long for people who are really looking for help in some of these really, really horrific diseases. So our goal is to utilize every method we can, including automation, automating data analysis, using machine learning, using artificial intelligence, anything that we can use to reduce that timeline. That's what we're going for. Thank you, Mr. Shemuel Lokande. I appreciate that question.
Awesome.
Well, Mr. Tivade, thank you so much for doing this Q&A at the end. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your really busy day.
Oh,
to,
absolutely.
speak to
Oh, there he is.
It seems that words.
Joshua, there was some dude named Shemuel Lokande on that call, man. Give him my regards.
Well,
Thank you. Well, thank you so much. Hopefully that's helpful. But to everyone in that room, just listen up 1 second. Find your passion. That is the key. All right. Find your passion. And the passion comes from helping others. All right.
Oh, you're unmuted.
All right.
Awesome.
Okay. Bye-bye.